Hey everybody, welcome in. This is Paul David here with Automobile Atlanta. Today we're going to go over a few questions with Dr. 914 himself. And these questions come from our top fans on YouTube and Facebook.
Hi everyone, George Hussey, Dr. 914 here. I understand that there's some questions coming over the web rather than to my phone these days, and they've compiled a few, and I thought I would answer them all for you. So Paul's going to ask me the questions, and I'll answer them. But keep in mind, anytime you need 914 tech advice, or really tech advice on any other Porsche, mostly the older ones, don't hesitate to call. I'm always here. Saturday I'm here from even 10 to 4. And I'll pick up the phone, we'll talk, take as long as you want, and if I don't have the right answer about the 914, I'll tell you so. If I don't have the right answer about any Porsche, I'll certainly tell you so. But my advice gathered over, let's see, 50 years, it sinks in eventually. Starting with old guys back then, and me being the young punk not knowing anything and listening to everything they said. So now I'm the old guy, and now I can give you the tech advice. Paul?
All right, so the first question comes in from a top fan on Facebook.
How do we know he's a top fan?
He's got the badge on Facebook.
Does he?
He has been communicating and supporting us a lot more than the other folks out there, so he's considered a top fan, rated by Facebook.
Makes me feel like $1 million.
Yes. All right, so Ronald Katz writes in from Plymouth, Minnesota, and he's asking what horsepower and torque numbers can he expect on his stock 2-liter rebuild with new webcam for 40 IDFs and flat-topped new pistons and cylinders.
Well, if it's got 40 IDFs, it's not a stock 2-liter anymore. They all came with fuel injection from the factory, except a couple of rare 7518 models. But these days, everybody's putting the big bore kit on, putting the stock fuel injection back on, and having a little bit of a boost because you get 8.5 to 1 compression and 96 millimeter, which with fuel injection gives you just over 100. However, as in anything, the more air you put into the engine and the more you can put the more fuel in the engine, you're going to get more horsepower. That doesn't mean we need to overcarburate. 40 is the stock carb if you're going to have to put it on a 914, and together with a webcam, you'd end up probably with 115 horsepower and maybe 130 foot-pounds of torque. That's about it. The 4 air horns of the Weber 40s especially show the difference over fuel injection at the upper RPM range when you're just throwing more gas, like I said, and more fuel into there rather than the stock throttle body.
All right, so next up, top fan Dave King from Binghamton, New York. He writes in, what are the top 5 items to consider or replace when buying a 914 to make it a driver?
Well, that's a pretty wide open question, Dave. It seems maybe if you buy a wrecked 914 with the front end knocked off of it, the first thing you need to do is put a new front end on it. If you buy a 914 that has a bad engine, the first thing you're going to do is put a new engine in it. If you have a 914 with a bad transmission, the first thing you'd put is a new transmission in it. So we really don't know. It just depends on the car. I would look at the car, make sure it runs, make sure it's got good oil change, transmission oil change, brake fluid flush, good tires, make sure it shifts really well, make sure the clutch action is good on it, and then maybe look in the battery area. We never refer to the 914 battery area as what some people call it, and I'm not going to say that, but you want to look in that area and make sure that there's not some heavy rust in there. That's about it. But 5 things, nothing necessarily. If you have a perfect 914, then you end up putting some nice floor mats on it. You put one of the retro Blaupunkt radios with iPod connector, but you just never know. Again, depends on the car.
Okay, next up we have Marcus Eckert from Germany. He writes in, what are the typical defects or problems with the Bosch D-Jetronic?
You know, there are really no problems. That D-Jetronic, although years and years and years old, was pretty damned reliable, especially when it was new. These days, now 60 years on, it started with the Type 311 Volkswagen and then migrated into the Porsche 914. Finally, in 76, discontinued in favor of the AFC for the subsequent cars, including the 912E. But these days we find the air pressure sensor goes bad, the diaphragm breaks, causing rich running. The head temperature sensor fails, usually causes very, very bad cold running. The auxiliary air valve sticks, causing either way too much high idle when the thing warms up, the engine, or when you first start it, hardly any idle, which means it's sort of cranky, so to speak, when cold. We've had many fuel pumps now start to leak and then have to obviously rebuild them just because of, again, the age. Very, very few injectors on the D-Jetronic go bad, except maybe they leak a little bit, but they never seem to clog up. And generally, other than that, it's quite bulletproof, really is. And we love to put it back on the car after all of these years without it. And in our restoration process, we have taken so many carb sets, especially single carbs off, and heave-hoed them in favor of the original fuel injection back on, which gives the optimum performance, especially off the line, great fuel mileage, and by measured injection makes the engine last a lot longer.
Well said. All right, next up, we have Spurrier Motorsports from Blackpool, England. He writes in and asks, where can he get a full parts catalog so he can find all of his missing bits for restoration?
Well, I suppose since they never exported any 914s to England, and the few they did Crayford conversion right-hand drive, which was quite the task, considering you have to cut the whole gas tank area open and cut the gas tank in half and reverse it. I can see why you'd have a little problem finding 914 parts. And we are blessed because we have Porsche permission to use their factory parts drawings on our site, which shows every single part that you'd ever want for your 914. And then years ago, and we still print it, we have this fabulous 914 thick catalog. So you can peruse this to your heart's content. Now, some of the prices have changed, of course, and maybe a few products we don't have, and then maybe we have a lot more products, but it's still, we call it the 914 Bible. By the way, where can I get some MG rubber sill panels for my 67 BGT? I can't find them anywhere. Do you think you could drum them up for me?
All right. So next up we have Wendy Nolan from Texas. She has a 73 2-liter bored out to a 2.3 by Auto Atlanta. She's told with twin 40mm Webers. It will idle, but bogs under acceleration and will die. Was told that it might be the accelerator pump. Bought the Weber rebuild kits, but she is new to the 914s and never dealt with a single carb autos at all. Does that sound correct, or are there other things that she should be checking?
Wendy, it's great that you're driving a 914. Way back when they were new, I met all my girlfriends driving 914s because they were quiet and spacious and had light shifting and light braking and light steering. They came in wild fruit flavored colors, and they were reasonably priced and got good gas mileage. So just couldn't go wrong. These days, of course, again, they're a little bit old now, and like an older person, when they break a little bit harder, and it takes a lot more to fix them up. But the fact that the car has carbs on it is going to be troublesome. Again, I advocate fuel injection, runs perfectly every time, meters the fuel, starts every time, instant off-the-line acceleration. The Webers can be troublesome in the fact that you never know who put them on, who tuned them, what jetting they have, what idle jetting they have, and what size. Now, the fact you have 40s, that would be the carb for the 914, not 44s. 44 is too much carburation, it will bog down. With 40s on there, usually, like you found out, it's the accelerator pumps that don't give it that initial squirt that makes it bog, but you said you rebuilt those carbs. So that means that if we think the carbs are okay, we would want to go back and make sure that the dwell on the points, meaning how long the points open to fire the spark plugs, is dead on the money at 50 degrees, and the timing is set to 27 degrees before top dead center at 3,500 RPM. You could advance it maybe to 30 degrees before top dead center to make sure that it has plenty of timing, because if it doesn't have enough timing, it's going to bog down. And repeat that question again for me, please.
All right, from the top, she has a 73 2-liter bored out to a 2.3 by Auto Atlanta.
That's what I was going to say. We don't put carburation on 914s unless a car comes in here and it's already got carbs because it burned down in the past or something like that. We don't put carbs on, therefore that cannot be our rebuild. Plus, we don't put a piston and cylinder kit nor a rod that would give a 2.3 sized engine. The most we do is we do the 96 millimeter kit, which on a 914 1.7 or 1.8 is 1911, and on a 2-liter is 2100. That's it. You see all of these people do different combinations of stroke and bore and heads and carburation to get horsepower out of these cars. And yes, you can get some, but that little 4-cylinder, the more you do it to it, the more you're straining it and the less reliable it becomes. Therefore, we only build basic stock engines. In our restoration shop, we don't color change, we don't modify the cars either. We do it basic and stock, and that way, in our limited knowledge, in general, we can come out with a pretty good product. We do it the way the factory did it. We're not going to reinvent the wheel here. So if you look that back over your engine and again go over the dwell and the timing, you said you've already rebuilt the carbs and looked at the accelerator pumps. Also look at the configuration of the accelerator cable and the linkage, because if the linkage is off, when you first step on the gas, if one carb opens and the other doesn't, you're going to have it bogging. It's critically important when you put your airflow meter on the carb horns, open the throttle just a little bit and make sure both of the air meters pop at the same exact opening. Then you'll solve it.
All right, next up we have Greg Matula on YouTube writing in. He's saying sometimes his 914 door does not shut well. What do you look into as the first steps? He also replied back and said the car has not been into an accident.
That's an easy one. Many of you have my Tech Tip 700 book, which covers that exact problem. The latching mechanism inside the door gets dirty. It doesn't quite click back when you open the door. So therefore, it becomes a situation where you close the door and it just springs back because the latch is not catching anymore. It's in that halfway position. So you close the door, it pops back. You close the door, it pops back. You close the door, it pops back. Then you go to the inner door latch and you pop the little square tab. That clicks the catching mechanism and then it closes. That's the most common thing. Second thing is maybe a little bit of sag because of rust, but that'll show up just because the door line won't be on correctly. And then the third one is maybe the door frame gasket is too thick, so the door is not closing all the way after maybe some kind of restoration when they got the geometry off. Those are things you could look at easily.
All right, so that wraps up the questions for the week on social media. That's it.
Okay, keep them coming. I'm here. Call me anytime. I'm here on Saturday. Look, I just pick up the phone like this. Tech line, what year is your car? And you got it. Thank you.